Well, that was a dull episode. I mean, not much happened, just people dying, and plot twists, and cliffhangers that book readers have been stuck on for years. Who am I kidding? This was Mother's Mercy, and much to my disappointment, a certain character didn't show up. But a lot of stuff happened, which I'm going to talk about, and then I'm just going to say how I felt about Season 5 overall. So we're going to... I would say we start north and work right down, but I want to save the north for last, just because... Just given that's where we end, which... Interesting place to end, although given the fact that the books are sort of going into... Is Winds of Winter, and apparently Martin's like, we're going to go farther north. Like, I'm wondering if that's just to set up the north. So yeah, we're going to start... So, Winterfell finally came to a head. We had a nice setup and an aftermath to about, kind of like Godzilla, where they just build something up and then they take it away. But unlike Godzilla, I mean, it's understandable. They have a small budget. They can't show everything, and they have a limited amount of time. But they were still able to get some impressive visuals in. Stannis... I have no clue what happened to him, but Brienne finally gets to do something, which I've been waiting all season for to do something, although this whole episode was anticlimactic because we kept cutting away to stuff just as it was getting interesting. Like, we have Brienne possibly killing Stannis. We don't see it, so we don't know. Maybe she did kill him, maybe she didn't. Because Stannis is still alive in the books, but I mean, I don't know. Because there's a lot of moments in here where I'm wondering how much of this is stuff that has happened in the books, that they're just... Stuff that's happened in the books at a later point that they're just moving now versus stuff that they're just doing for the sake of doing. But yeah, Sansa finally gets to do something. They streamlined Sansa's escape from Winterfell. In the books, there's a bit more to it. Although it's still great. Like, Reek, I mean, in the book, I feel like Reek's redemption, in a sense, works a bit better with introspection. But they still handled it well. You know, I think Sansa and Peril just was enough to snap him out of it. Oh yeah, we haven't seen Littlefinger in a while. But yeah, really well done. Kind of anticlimactic. In the books, we get a bit more of what happens after that, which I'm guessing they're saving for season 6. There are a lot of moments in this episode where they're ending just on the tail end of this character's story in the books. Like, there's a bit more to it all. Dorne. Didn't really care for Dorne. I mean, there was a shocking death of Myrcella, but I mean, other than that, it was a pretty uneventful Dornstone. It's like, really, that's all this? He went there and she died, and I mean, Myrcella's still alive in the books, so I'm wondering, is this something that happens at some point that they just move to now, or are they just doing it for shock value? I mean, at this point, it wouldn't surprise me if they just gave another major spoil. I mean, why would they put that article, we're going to wind up spoiling the books, if nothing book spoiler was going to happen this season? But yeah. Meereen, this episode was mainly just them setting up the next season storyline, which I'm guessing will involve the politics of Meereen, which we get a bit of in the books, although not really. It looks like they're just moving it all to season 6. But again, it's mostly setting up for next season. I'm kind of curious what this was like in the books, if someone goes out to look for her in the books. Because in the book, like, Tyrion and Ser Jorah haven't even gotten to Meereen yet. Ser Jorah also has grayscale in the show, so I'm curious where they're going with that. And Daario is like nowhere to be seen, so that'll be interesting. And Varys is not even anywhere near Meereen in the books. In the books, he's in King's Landing, and he participates in a shocking... Well, something happens in King's Landing in the epilogue that they don't show. Dany's ending was pretty well done. I mean, I'm glad we get to see Dany and they didn't just leave it on a cliffhanger. In the books, there's like a long hiatus between the arena when we see Daenerys. It's like over 100 pages, or at least it felt like it. And even then, there's just a lot of Daenerys just walking around, whereas here they streamline it, which I'm okay with. Bravos, really well done. It was a really nice moment, just not only showing just how far gone Arya is, just from the innocent girl we met in the first season, but also the fact that Arya, she can't let go of who she is, and we clearly see that in the way she just massacres her target. I'm glad she just disguises herself and she doesn't have to go through sex to do it. I was kind of worried. And also, I kind of touched on this in my reaction video, but was anyone else expecting Arya to, not Arya, the guy she was killing to like say, Syrio got away, he's still alive, like to just reveal that, and then Arya's like, well, that was for nothing, but that didn't happen. Instead, we go back and get a shocking ending, which was in the book, where we have Jaqen revealing himself. We have that he wasn't really Jaqen, he was some whoever. And then the girl wasn't really her. That was just two shocking endings back to back. And Arya going blind, which is where her storyline ends for Feast for Crows, which because Arya does do something after this in the books, and at first I thought they were combining this and that because she hadn't gone blind yet, but my guess is they just wanted to end Arya's story for her going blind for shock value, which I mean works. It's just the downside of that is that a lot of Arya's story is nothing really happening, and you could have done Arya's entire story in one season if you wanted to. I didn't see a point to stretching it out. The sequence in King's Landing with Cersei, they kind of streamlined her bit in the book. In the book, there's a lot more of her sitting around her cell asking for forgiveness, but that whole walking sequence was really well done. Like, again, it's kind of serving as an overarching theme of this season of characters like paying for their sins. In a sense, like you have the guy Arya killed who's paying for what he did. You have and also Arya and Brienne finally killed this one person. You have, in a sense, Daenerys is paying for what she did. Jon Snow is paying for what he did, which we'll get into a bit, but worked. And it was, again, really well done sequence. It was gripping to read in the books, and it was gripping to watch here. And I honestly wish they had ended on that and not the other thing, which, I mean, while appropriate, is... Sorry, I'm just trying to remember what the endings to the other seasons are. Which, while appropriate, wasn't exactly most interesting. But Jon Snow's death was pretty nicely set up this season. I mean, from episode 1, they were just setting up this... The Night Watch is against Jon Snow. And every episode he, like, does something that ticks off the Night Watch. So, yeah, I saw his death coming. I mean, especially when he's talking... In the books, it's handled a bit better just because... Sam leaves the wall much earlier in the books, and it's to get Gilly's baby away from Melisandre. Not Gilly. It was to get Stannis' baby away from Melisandre. Not Stannis. It was to get a baby away from Melisandre of royal blood. But they moved it here, which makes sense. And I'm guessing they're just going to do Sam's Bravo storyline in Season 6, but I don't know. But the result is by having Sam leave... Now, it just makes Jon Snow's death that much more obvious because he's... Yeah, the sentimental scene, them saying goodbye, like, it's very heavily foreshadowed. But yeah, Jon Snow's dead, and in case you're wondering, that's where his story ends in the books, and it's a very frustrating cliffhanger to read, and I only just caught up with the books a couple months ago, so I can only imagine what book readers who've been sitting on this for 4 years have been doing. In fact, there was one tweet that says, now you know what we book readers have been sitting on for 4 years. So, yeah, I mean, it was a powerful ending, well done. But, yeah, I mean, I probably would have preferred Cersei's death. Not death, but her walk being the ending. But again, I haven't read the books. I don't know where all this stuff goes because we're mostly caught up with the books. I mean, with a couple exceptions. I mean, Arya, Meereen, Like, there's a couple storylines that there's still a bit more left. But for the most part, this show is caught up with the books. Like, we have reached that point. I mean, unless George R. R. Martin can get the 6th book out by season 6, which he says he's trying to do, which I hope he does. Book readers are going to be in for a shock unless, like me, you're not going to watch the show and you're just going to wait for the other books to come out, which is what I'm doing because I prefer the books. I think the presentation there's a bit strong. I mean, the show's really good, don't get me wrong, but I would much rather prefer to experience it the way it was originally written. Because, I mean, Martin's written most of Winds of Winter, so the creators are sort of working off most of what he's written. So yeah, I'm just real quick going to talk about Season 5. It was a pretty good season. I mean, it was slow. Probably was one of the lesser eventful. Honest, but it was still pretty good. I mean, the books was very similar. It was more of an in-between, like, setup for the next season. But in both cases, it was still pretty good. I mean, the show in some cases was a bit better in the sense that it was over a lot quicker, whereas the books, it's, like, drawn out. You're, like, waiting for all these years for stuff to happen. It's, like, stuff kind of happens, but not really. But yeah, like, I mean, most storyline, and the storylines in here ranged. I mean, there were some where, like, they moved along at a reasonable pace, like, the King's Landing, Marine, which honestly was way better in the books. Not way better. It was better here than in the books. I mean, if you've read the books, it's like, it goes on for a while. Marine, King's Landing, but a lot of other stuff was either drawn out or it just lacked its meat. Like, the Wall, the Wall was fine. That honestly wasn't particularly interesting in the books, but Arya's story I felt lost a lot of interesting stuff. Tyrion's story was, Tyrion and Dorne lost a lot of elements that made them somewhat rich, especially Tyrion's story, which was quite interesting in the books, whereas Dorne wasn't that interesting, but it was well written. But yeah, I mean, most of it was just, it wasn't bad, it's just there wasn't a whole lot going on, but maybe season 6 will have more, I don't know. So yeah, again, it was a good season. I mean, I was constantly looking forward to it every week. I got a lot out of it. I had something to talk about. And I am excited to see where the story goes next, although I'm probably not going to watch the show. As I mentioned earlier, I want to read the books. But yeah, this was fun. So leave your thoughts on this season in the comments below. Like, dislike, subscribe, and this is JStar60, and I'll see you guys later. Until next time, take care.